My apologies if you can hear typing in the background, my partner's just doing an assignment. Hey everyone, it's Bethany from Beth and Books and welcome back to this book nook. Today I am coming at you with a new kind of video. We'll see if it becomes a series if you guys like it, and it is recently added backlist books on my TBR. The reason I wanted to create this video is because amongst all of my videos, like my book hauls and my upcoming books I'm excited for videos and my 5-star prediction videos, something that I am aware of is that I want to be able to share with you older books. Like, that's kind of my purpose. I want to be able to share with you the new books, but also the older books that sometimes get a little bit left behind. They're either not super hyped up on social media, or for whatever reason they just fall through the cracks, but honestly they sound pretty intriguing. With that being said though, disclaimer, I'm not saying you haven't heard of any of these books. That is probably not the case because, you know, I heard about them from somewhere, so chances are you will have heard of a few of them as well. But with that being said, I'm going to be sharing with you 10 books that I have recently added to my TBR that you haven't seen in any of my other videos, in an effort just to share with you the other books that are out there. As always, I'll leave the good read links below if you want to add them to your own shelves. And let me shuffle over because I need to share with you the cool cover art, and let's begin. Oh, and I should probably say all of these came out not this year, maybe some last year, but the majority of them like 2018 backwards. So the first book I really want to read is The Library of the Unwritten by Aj Hackworth. So this is, I think it's meant to be an adult fantasy, and it follows Claire, and Claire is a librarian in the Library of the Unwritten, and what happens is she's kind of like a guardian. So all of these books have the characters in them, and the characters can come free of their bindings, and so it's her job to kind of collect and hunt down those characters that escape and to bring them back into their home novels. However, one day when she's doing this, and this angel called Remiel, I'm pretty sure is his name, comes down and accuses them of looking after the Devil's Bible, which is essentially this super powerful novel, and then it just becomes a battle of heaven and hell within a library setting. Next up is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett, and it is book 1 in, again, another fantasy, an adult fantasy, but this one is a bit different because it follows like a treasure hunting vibe. We have our main character called Sankria, and in her world you either have everything or nothing, and she's on the verge of having nothing. So one day she gets offered this job, and it's like, find this artifact and we will reward you handsomely. So she's like, yeah, yes please, I want some of that. So she does that, but along the way there's obviously lots of other people after this precious artifact as well, and long story short, it becomes this hunt, and so it also has this kind of game element where it's like a game of fatal tag, which honestly is intriguing. Next up is Angel's Blood by Nalini Singh. This one I actually have on my list thanks to one of you guys. It came out of my follower favourite chart, and unfortunately I couldn't find it at the library, but I put it on this list because, gosh darn, if it doesn't sound like a paranormal romance that I just want to devour one sunny day with like a cocktail in hand. It follows our main character, what was her name, sorry? Eleanor, and she is a vampire hunter, and she gets hired by Archangel Raphael, and long story short, he sends her on a mission. She's got to kill all these vampires, and although she gets pushed to the edge of her passions with vampire hunting, she also finds passion for the Archangel. I struggle with that word. Archangel Raphael. So it is an adult fantasy romance, but honestly it's the beginning of one of those series where if I'm just feeling really down or I'm in a reading slump, I imagine I can pick this up and just read it in one sitting. Next up is We Are Okay by Nina LaCour, and this one is a young adult contemporary that honestly just sounds really harrowing, and probably a book that I will get around to like next Halloween season. It's about our main character who runs away from home and essentially finds herself all alone and just trying to survive through life. Tragedy is still hot on her heels and she just cannot escape it. It sounds like it could be a really good book that talks about depression and how it's represented, and I won't lie, part of the reason it's on my list is because I want to read it, see if it is good at that sort of representation, so I can recommend it to my students if it might help them in some way, whether that be because they themselves are feeling a bit down or just to help teach people about what mental illnesses like that are like for the people experiencing them. Next up on this list is kind of a cheat, and that is the entire Witcher series. I'll see if I can show you up there. I got the whole box set for my birthday from my partner, and I've actually read book 0.25, I think it is. There's 2 prequels, and I read the very first prequel and absolutely loved it. So I'm just putting that whole series on my TBR. You're probably aware of what it is by now, so I'll just move on. Next up is Furyborn by Legrand, and I'm sure you guys have seen this before, so just to whiz through it, it is a YA fantasy that follows 2 characters' perspectives and set in completely different timelines, 1,000 years apart in fact. The first perspective we have is a queen who essentially reveals herself as a potential queen when her best friend is almost assassinated, so she saves him and she has to go through trials. And then the other perspective is a bounty hunter who thinks she is untouchable. She's the person set in the future, by the way, thinks she's untouchable until her mum disappears, and she just goes on this little bit of a voyage to figure out what happened to her. And along the way we realise that there's something really corrupt and that both of these storylines connect somehow. And I've got 3 books left. The first one of these 3, so the 7th, 8th one in the video, is Deadwake by Erik Larson. This is actually non-fiction, and I surprised myself by putting this on my list. Now, I want to get the facts right. So, May 1st, 1915, there was a luxury ocean liner, and that had a number of children and infants on it, coming from the English countryside to be safe from the war. But Germany had declared the seas around Britain to be a war zone, so they were threatened, you know, to be sunk with all these innocent children on board. And honestly, the rest of it is a bit blurry to me. I'm not very good with my history, which is another reason why I picked this up, to be honest. And it's all about like the idea that we think we knew history, but this is told in a way that shows multiple perspectives and sheds a new light on things. And I just was super intrigued about how it was told like a novel, but it was non-fiction. I just find that a really interesting concept. Next up is Severance by Ling, Maar, and this one kind of is on the boundaries of young adult and adult, so maybe putting it in that new adult category fits for it here. And it is a dystopian novel, so it follows our main character called Candace, and she just works really hard at the computer until one day essentially the Shen fever, I think it's called, sweeps through, and essentially it's deadly, so freaky pandemic kind of style stuff going on here, and she essentially can't survive on her own, and she has to go out into the world and try to do that as someone who has like 0 experience. And apparently it's quite humorous. It's a satire novel, which I haven't read before, I don't think. I've watched satire movies, but I've not read a satire novel, hence it's on this list. And with that, that concludes all of the books that I've recently added onto my TBR that are backlist novels. Let me know if you're going to add any of these, or if you've read any and think they are worth being put on my TBR, or if you yourself have some backlist books that you think I should add as well. With all that being said and done though, thank you for watching this video. Enjoy all the places you go in your own reading adventures, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!